News Talk weather.
Thanks to the AA. Need to renew your AA car insurance? Go to the aa.ie/myAA.
Mostly dry tonight, apart from the odd shower in the northwest. Lowest temperatures of 4 to 8 degrees. And now you're up to date on News Talk.
Off the ball. This is News Talk.
Hello there, you're welcome along to Wednesday evening's Off the Ball. On tonight's show, Owen Redden is the feature interview coming your way for Wednesday Night Rugby. That is on the way between 8 and 9 o'clock. We have a football show featuring Dan McDonnell and Miguel Delaney between 9 and 10. This hour, Pat Nevin picks out his favourite ever Champions League game. And there is more besides. 53106, the text number. We are at Off the Ball on Twitter. Richie McCormack is there. Hello.
How are you, Joe? You well?
Very well because, Richie, because Adrian Barry also with us. Adrian.
Joseph, Richard, good evening to you both.
Well.
So what's going on, Adrian? What has been taking up your time today?
Oof. Well, let me tell you, Joe. How long have you got? 15 seconds?
30 to 40 seconds.
Yeah. Same old ding-dong, Joe, to be honest with you. Reading these stories of sort of lunatics wandering out to, taking training sessions in parks, wandering off to their holiday homes. I kind of wonder what the hell's going on with the world, that people are being so stupid. But other than that, the old 2 kilometre trek, as our listeners and viewers will be very well aware of from the last couple of weeks, Joe, I'm sure you'd agree with that, continues to be trodden every day. Exciting times.
I'm becoming very familiar with all the houses in my general 2 kilometre radius now. I mean, we practically have a power rankings, me and my wife, of all the houses. What about that one? This is all there is to talk about at times.
Let's have it.
Yeah, indeed.
Let's have it.
We have Owen Redden on the show this evening. So I think we all knew Owen Redden had a very, 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 very good career, an excellent career. In a sneakily way, he's had an extraordinary career in that he has played over 385 professional games, 71 tests for Ireland, Owen Redden. 71 tests for Ireland, that's a big number. And in the midst of it all, he was a winner as well. 2 Six Nations, 3 Heineken Cups, 2 Pro 12 titles, a Premiership, obviously, with Wasps. One of his Heineken Cups was with Wasps as well. European Challenge Cup thrown in. And he retires at the age of 35. That is a very, very impressive career, Adrian Barry. Did you know it was that good?
I wouldn't have given you those stats, no. But he definitely does tend to get overlooked, I think, when it comes to conversations about Irish scrum halves. We've been so incredibly well served, obviously, over the last decades, really. But in the sort of Stringer to Murray eras, Redden does tend to get overlooked frequently. But geez, maybe part of it was to do, I know he was obviously at Leinster for years and years and was very successful there, but maybe part of it was to do with the Wasps, saying that was sort of where he had obviously spent a bunch of his career as well. Never really in the conversation, I don't think, about a world standard in a way that Murray would have been, particularly, and Stringer probably in his heyday. And maybe that went against him as well. But geez, Mr. Steady. Very always struck me as a very serious
smart
character.
Smart man, thoughtful. If you expect nuanced and complex answers from him, and that's all on the way between 8 and 9. We chatted to him earlier on. There's lots of good stuff in it. Sean Edwards at Wasps and the influence he had on Redden is good. Includes him taking Redden outside and getting him to throw the ball over wheelie bins to mimic certain scenarios in games. So that's all on the way.
When you say taking Redden outside, I didn't know where that was going to go.
Well, exactly, yeah. So that's on the way. Football show between 9 and 10. We have Miguel Delaney with us. We have Dan McDonnell with us. We don't actually, Richie, because there are a few things to talk about with the two lads. We don't get time to touch on what is your first story in the Newsround.
Yeah, Tottenham manager Jose Mourinho has admitted he was wrong to hold a training session in a public park. He says the decision to do some one-on-one exercises with midfielder Tongi and Dombele in Barnet yesterday went against British government protocol for exercise during the coronavirus pandemic. Spurs have reminded players of their responsibilities after Davinson Sanchez and Ryan Sessegnon were also filmed out running together. Serge Aurier was also seen running alongside a separate individual in the general vicinity of Barnet as well on social media yesterday. While Spurs legend Jimmy Greaves continued to be treated in hospital today, his family say the 80-year-old's admission was not coronavirus related. The all-time leading goal scorer in the English top flight suffered a stroke back in 2015.
Yeah, we wish him well. I wouldn't mind, Adrian, only Jose Mourinho in the same statement did then make a point of lecturing everybody about just how important it is that we all stay at home.
It's ludicrous, Joe. Like, you had the Kyle Walker situation the other day, and he somehow felt the need in his clarification statement, is that how you would phrase that thing, whatever it was, to tell people to stay at home. Kyle, I'm very tempted to use an expression here that I'll hold the reins on, but shut up, dude. Like,
Kyle Walker was staying at home, though.
People to stay at home. What?
Kyle Walker was staying at home. He was inviting too many people into his home, but he was still staying at home, Adrian.
I mean, I'm just saying, if you're going to be lecturing people about something that they should be doing, admittedly, save it for another day, dude. Like, give it a week.
Yeah. Just go with the apology and worry about the advice the next day, I would think, as well.
Absolutely.
So that's Jose, and he's doing his thing, but he's advising everybody to follow the rules.
You would think, Joe, by the way,
go on.
sorry, like, whatever about Kyle Walker, it was bad, but somebody at Jose Mourinho's age and stature, and I mean, I was going to say roundedness, maybe that's not actually correct when it comes to Jose Mourinho, but would have an understanding of the impact that he carries, would have an understanding of the celebrity that he carries outside of football, surely would know that somebody somewhere is going to snap him.
And especially when you're wearing the official club gear.
That was the thing. I mean, they even had the GPS vests on. I mean, they couldn't have looked more like Spurs people training, and Jose Mourinho in his Spurs jacket as the manager. I know, and like, it is quite unfair in the players because they're young players. In Ndombele in particular has taken a lot of criticism from Mourinho of late. So if Mourinho suggests to you that we go training, you're not really in a great position to say, no, I don't want to do that.
And it was also, the thing I don't really fully understand, I haven't seen the photographs, some sort of fitness training.
Yeah.
What's he doing? What's Mourinho doing that for?
I just
He's
bored.
clearly got a program from
coach.
somebody. Like, he's clearly gotten a program from somebody in the fitness department to go and at least go and try and do something with Ndombele. There was a piece I was reading literally just before we came on air saying Premier League managers are increasingly finding it harder and harder to motivate their players and to try and encourage them to stay fit during all this, because they just don't know when they're going to be back, or they don't know when that period of quote unquote pre-season training that they're going to have is going to actually begin. So there are levels of frustration creeping in that are not, exclusive to Jose Mourinho, so you can kind of understand it.
Boo-hoo, you know what I mean? Nobody knows when anything's happening. Everybody's struggling. And like, they'll have a pre-season, that's the whole point of it. If Ndombele doesn't go for a run for a few weeks, he'll be fine. So,
but also, Ndombele, go for your own run. Why do you need Jose Mourinho? He's not a fitness coach.
Well, he's struggling for motivation. That's the point.
Get a Zoom, Joe. It's a great bit of technology.
Yeah. No, it was very striking. They were doing no ball work. It was just running, but they decided to get together, in a tight little bunch to go for the run. So there you go. Meanwhile, Real Madrid are doing what most clubs are doing at the moment.
Yeah, their entire first-team squad, head coach Zinedine Zidane, his backroom team, and the club's executives have all agreed to take pay cuts as a result of the coronavirus shutdown. They voluntarily reduced their annual salary by between 10 and 20%. The percentages depends on how the Spanish season ends. Real say the measures have been taken in an effort to reduce what they say are the traumatic measures that affect the rest of the workers at the club, as well as contributing to the economic objectives of the entity in view of the decrease in income. Football in Spain suspended indefinitely as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic.
We'll talk to Miguel Delaney about the ongoing strife over in English football regarding pay cuts, what the players want to do, what the owners want to do. It's been an incredibly fast-moving story over the last number of days. Tory ministers getting involved. Premier League came out and said, we need the players to take a 30% cut. The players were livid about this because they had been talking already about taking a cut and giving the money directly to the NHS. Premier League are saying, effectively, some of us are going out of business. There's talk of Premier League clubs going into administration, whether you believe that or not. The players, from their point of view, are saying, well, if we're taking a 30% cut, we should be giving it to the likes of the NHS and not ploughing it back into billionaire-owned football clubs, effectively to be spent, presumably, on transfers next summer, maybe even to replace me after I give you 30% of my wages. So that's the impasse at the moment. Apparently, the 20 Premier League captains are all in a WhatsApp group, and they're really digging in now. They effectively, Adrian, their point is Premier League clubs are fine, and Premier League clubs can borrow against the TV money they're going to get down the line, and money is effectively free at the moment. The Bank of England are printing it, so football clubs could borrow that money against the TV revenue that will come in, and we footballers want to do our bit. Let's put our money into the NHS. We don't actually trust the owners at the moment. That's the current impasse, and both sides are starting to dig in a little bit at the moment, which is interesting.
It's all interesting. I think that there's so much going on with it at the minute. You've outlined it there very well, but there's so much going on with it. I think a lot of it tends to get mixed up into the same pot, and actually there's so much going on. We're talking about the Premier League. We're talking about Premier League clubs as if they all have the same profit and loss sheets.
Yeah.
I just think that introducing one piece of advice that would cover all of those clubs is just the wrong thing to do, because I would imagine that there are some of them that will be struggling to keep things afloat and may well need to engage with some of the facilities that are put in place by the UK government. Others doing it just seems absolutely farcical, to be fair to some of them. At Liverpool have obviously had their own U-turn on it. Haven't chosen to do that. Like Jordan Henderson's obviously done. I think he might have been the one that was behind setting up that scheme to get the captains involved in the WhatsApp group. I think is a phenomenal thing to have done. I've always been a bit concerned about the PR aspect of it, why the UK government are choosing to go down this route. And also, there will be books written on this exact thing. I'm absolutely certain of that over the next few years. The role of Gordon Taylor and all of this. There's been question marks about him in the past. And for me, looking at what's going on over the last little while, he's on a salary of $2 million.
Yeah.
From what I've read, he's doing all right for himself. He's I don't know if he's best representing players in the rounded sense of things, and like putting him in the best possible position that they could be in from a PR perspective out the other side of this. I would have my doubts about it. The
PFA stance is that actually a wage cut would dramatically reduce the amount of money going to revenue, and so you're foregoing a huge amount of tax which can go to the NHS. That's the stance the PFA have taken. I think we're saying up to $500 million, if this goes even close to the end of this year, would not go in taxes to the revenue. So their stance is, well, we need to be careful about any cuts we make and where the money is going. But yeah, like, it's very hard for Gordon Taylor, of all people, to be advocating nobody should take a pay cut. So we'll talk to Miguel Delaney, who's right across that story between 9 and 10. Meanwhile, Padraig Harrington, I see, is saying something pretty different, Richie, to what he was saying with us 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, Padraig Harrington says it's unlikely the Ryder Cup would be played without fans. The clash of the US and Europe is due to be held at Whistling Straits in Wisconsin at the end of September. Harrington has been speaking to BBC Radio 5 Live, and he says he's held regular talks with Ryder Cup organisers over the impact of the coronavirus pandemic, including the possibility of a postponement, but they're continuing to plan for the event as normal.
Okay, because I read the headline, he believes it shouldn't go ahead if fans aren't there. Nobody wants to see Ryder Cup playing without the fans. Interestingly, 2 weeks ago he was saying that he'd be happy for it to go ahead without fans as opposed to postponing. I guess they're trying to figure out the logistics of the whole thing. I think it probably is, on balance, Adrian, better to just postpone the thing, because you can't not have fans at the Ryder Cup. Go ahead with the Masters in November and all that stuff.
Yeah, it is the way the wind is blowing as well, isn't it? Like, things are getting kicked back now. The initial conversation, like week on week, we'd have seen a couple of weeks ago where it was like, yeah, that might be delayed for a month, couple of months. We'll kick it back to the end of the year. Now there's just flat out postponements, and things been scheduled forward to, the Olympics and the Euros and all that been kicked forward to next year. So it probably does make a bit of sense. But for my money, if it was safe to do it, without fans, I would go ahead and do it. Like, yeah. Absolutely. Like, somebody had a really good suggestion about maybe miking up the
players,
some of the players and captains, stuff like that would add a bit of it. Like, it'd be fine. It'd be fine without it. Like, as a TV experience, sure, there is those crucial moments across all the days of the Ryder Cup where the galleries go absolutely bonkers in a way that they don't at other tournaments. Absolutely.
And you get to watch players getting really irate and demanding that fans get kicked out and all that kind of stuff. That's kind of part of the Ryder Cup. So I now want the fans. I think that there probably will be enough golf on to postpone the Ryder Cup, to be honest. If we get the three majors as well, if the Masters happens and the other two happen as seems to be the plan, then maybe we can sort of live without the Ryder Cup. But
are they happening behind closed doors?
No confirmation, but I'd be shocked. Across the board, I'd be shocked if anything happens this side of Christmas not behind closed doors.
Why couldn't they create a week in the schedule to also, if I don't understand why the same rules wouldn't apply to the Ryder Cup as would to a major?
As in,
there's a lot of economic stuff behind it. Like, there's a lot. Like, you look at the governmental efforts that went into getting the Ryder Cup to the K Club back in 2006. Like, it's a massive tourist operation, and there are different towns and cities, not just golf clubs, that bid for this thing. And there's a lot of ancillary business that goes along with it. It's not necessarily like one of the majors. This is a massive tourist income for somewhere like Wisconsin that wouldn't necessarily be a massive tourist hub. So if you're telling them that, yeah, you still get the tournament, but you don't get any of the bolted on money that comes along with it due to fans flooding in, then I don't think those towns and cities are going to be particularly happy, which is why I think there is the reticence to say that they will go behind closed doors.
Yeah, well, we'll see how it plays out. Ultimately, Not that important, but we'll see what they decide to do.
Jesus, things are bad, Joe. Bloody hell. The Ryder Cup, not that important. Oof.
He'll be fine. One way or another, we'll get it. GMAC has found out he'll get to go to the Masters.
Yeah, he should be playing the par 3 if he had qualified, which he didn't initially, but the postponement of the Masters to November has provided a stroke of good fortune for Graham McDowell. He's now among the list of 96 invitees to Augusta as he crept inside the world's top 50 by the end of March. McDowell hasn't actually played at the Masters since back in 2016.
Cork City.
Yeah, they're hoping to ease their financial worries by selling the naming rights to Turner's Cross. The Leesiders are anchor tenants of the ground, which is owned by the Munster Football Association. City Chairman Declan Carey's told the Evening Echo that the MFA are keen to progress with the proposal. On a similar tip, Tipperary County Council have given the green light to a proposed renovation of Semple Stadium. Planning permission's been granted for the redevelopment of the Canaan stand, usually known as the old stand at the Thurles ground. The redevelopment will include new dressing rooms, media facilities and a new gym, and the plan effectively adds an extra tier to the Canaan stand.
Very good. Now I see Jim Crawford's been talking.
Yeah, he has. The new Republic of Ireland under-21 manager says he's hoping to finish the job started by Stephen Kenny. The under-21s sit top of their European Championship qualifying group with 3 games left to play. Ireland have never qualified for a major tournament at this age grade, and Crawford says he's learned a lot from working as assistant to the newly installed senior manager.
I've learned a lot from him, and what he brings to the manager's role with regards to him creating excellent environments for players to go and express themselves, because everybody knows he's about possession-based football and players going to express themselves, be creative on the ball, and really you need the right environment to have that as your output. And all this is underpinned with a culture of excellence, and the staffs that he brings in, the demands he gives the staffs and the high standards that he expects, so it's something I've definitely taken on board and look forward to implementing everything I've learned from Stephen too.
So that's Jim Crawford. We wish him well, under-21 boss now. Adrian, the dust has settled on the Stephen Kenny decision over the weekend. I think in the main people have felt the FAI handled it very well. The last remaining strand of the very strange arrangement dreamt up by the FAI and John Delaney a couple of years ago is Robbie Keane. We'll be talking to Dan McDonnell about this on the football show. So the latest we have is that obviously Stephen Kenny has picked his backroom team, as is correct. Jim Crawford is taking charge of the 21s and John O'Shea's alongside him. Robbie Keane's deal with the FAI, 4 years in length, with a clause that his salary jumps for the final 2 years, a reported $250,000 per annum for the next 2 years, which is a massive sum of money, and the FAI are in talks with him. So it's either find a role for him, pay up the contract, or maybe, as Dan McDonnell will tell us after 9 o'clock, more likely try and reach some kind of settlement. But I guess it's important not to burn bridges with somebody of Robbie Keane's track record as well and what he's done for Irish football. But it's a one last Christmas present from that deal, which was very strange on so many fronts.
Yeah, it's. I think you're right on that point. It's funny actually. I was just thinking about, we were chatting when I was on with you last week about what the FAI's next move might be, and I remember saying, like, sure, what's the rush? Like, they've got all the time in the world to play with. So that was pretty pathetic.
Prescient as always, Adrian.
From me, absolutely, Joe. But from Robbie's point of view, I think that, like, getting out of town, I think from both sides, really, like, it's grim you're saying there, they might try and find a role for Robbie. Like, that's not we really want you. That's like, there's a bit of a stink carried over from previously. But the world has changed dramatically since all of that happened in terms of the, obviously, back end setup at the FAI and the situation we're in at the minute. So there is an easy way for Robbie to step aside here. And I think that I'm sure he'd rather do that, right? Like, he has another gig. He's a lot going on with his life, and he'll be back with Ireland at some point. I think from everybody's point of view, this ending in a way that the Mick situation wrapped up pretty seamlessly for everybody, I think is going to be the best thing for everybody going forward. And by all accounts, by the way, like, it did seem from that interview that Gary Owens was on with you at the weekend, they would be of a mind to do that, I would think, rather than sort of anybody get too entrenched over it.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with all that. So we'll see how it plays out over the next few days. That is us done for the Newsround this evening. Richie, thank you as ever.
Cheers, lads.
Adrian, Barry, we'll talk to you soon. Thanks a mil.
Thanks, fellas.
We're taking a short ad break. After 8 o'clock, Owen Redden, as mentioned, for Wednesday Night Rugby. Dan McDonnell and Miguel Delaney on the football show. And up next, Pat Nevin picks his favourite ever Champions League game.
I remember lying back, pillows on me bed late after, looking up the top of my wardrobe,